have the Pixel 9 Pro Fold and the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6. Now, if you're thinking of buying a foldable phone, which one of these should you buy? Well, first let's go ahead and talk about the most logical thing, is the price. And here is where Samsung always wins. Hands down, every single year, Samsung has got this in the bag. Samsung typically offers competitive deals, and this time is no different. The Z Fold 6 lists at $1,900, but with current promotions, you could snag one up for as low as $700 after trade-in and bonuses like free storage upgrades and discounts on accessories. Now, the Pixel 9 Pro Fold lists at $1,800, but with a trade-in, you might end up paying around $1,040. So while both offer savings, Samsung's deals are significantly sweeter, if you ask me. Now, of course, I have a link down below that'll take you guys straight there if you're interested. The design of these two phones take on a different approach, as you can clearly see. Both cover displays are 6.3 inches, but both of them take on a different aspect ratio. The Pixel is more comparable to a normal phone with a 20:9 aspect ratio, and the Samsung has a 22:9 aspect ratio. So this just depends on which style you like best. In terms of the brightness on the cover displays, they're identical. Both go up to 2600 nits, which is plenty to see when you're outside. But the one thing that's kind of disappointing me, and sorry if you can hear my cat licking itself, hey, stop it. Stop. Hey. As I was saying, the thing that disappoints me is that the cover display on the Pixel Fold is not an LTPO cover display. So it only goes from 60 Hz to 120 Hz, whereas the Z Fold 6, yeah, the Z Fold 6, these naming schemes are kind of confusing, sorry, but this one is an LTPO panel, which means its refresh rate goes from as low as 1 Hz all the way up to 120 Hz, which of course does impact battery, but we'll get into that soon. Now, personally, I do like the Pixel design approach because you can kind of use the phone like normal, even without really realizing it's a folding phone, and then when you need it, boom, it opens. But at the same time, I also do understand Samsung's approach of having, you know, a more one-handed device. This is purely subjective. There is no right and wrong answer for this. It just kind of depends on which look you're going for. Speaking of looks, I do have to say the Samsung looks better in my opinion because of its thinner frame. It just looks much more modern compared to the Pixel Fold. In fact, if you look at the Samsung from the front, it doesn't even look like a folding phone. It just looks like a very, very skinny phone. You know, it just started going to the gym. Give it some time, it'll buff up. But it just looks like a nice little skinny phone from the front. You don't even know it's a folding phone, right? But no, with this one, my voice cracked. I'm dying. But with this one, you know, Google, get rid of this right there. You know, get rid of that. It just looks, it looks funky. Now, I think the opposite whenever it comes to the rear. I actually like the way the Pixel Fold looks. I think it looks more modern and new, which, you know, it kind of makes sense because we've seen this design for a while now. Samsung, hey buddy, Samsung, it's time to switch things up a bit, but at the same time, don't fix what's not broken, right? I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? Are you guys kind of sick and tired of this design? You know, let me know your opinions down below. For me personally, I like new. Even if it looks a little funky, you gotta admit that looks a little funky, but I like it. It's new. It's something different. Now, of course, both phones are sandwiched together with Gorilla Glass Victus 2 on both the front and the back, which is good for scratch protection, drop protection, and both phones are water resistant, but the Samsung does have a leg up. The IP rating of the Pixel Fold is IPX8, so it's not even really rated for dust, it's only really rated for water. And the Samsung is IP48, so it's both water and dust protected. Now, obviously things like micro sand is gonna get into the phone no matter what, so definitely, you know, do keep that in mind. But for your more larger particles, this one is definitely more protected. But, you know, I do have to say, I love how thin the Pixel 9 Pro Fold is, even when it's open and closed. I mean, in its closed state, it's 12.1 millimeters, and the Galaxy Z Fold 6 is 13.4 millimeters. And then once you open them, the Pixel Fold is crazy. 5.5 millimeters compared to 6.1 on the Z Fold 6. Both of these phones feel absolutely incredible, but let's be honest, you're most likely gonna use a case anyway, so yeah. But this phone definitely just makes me kind of wish I didn't need a case because it just feels so good in the hand. It's so thin. It really, I mean, as an example, Here's the Pixel 9 Pro XL, right? But it has a case on. It's literally thinner than the Pixel is in the case. So that just kind of goes to show you this is crazy thin. But despite it being thinner, it actually weighs quite a bit more. 257 grams compared to 239 grams. Guys, that is a pretty darn noticeable difference. I mean, even me holding these right now in my hands side by side, I mean, you can easily tell a difference. So, you know, if I had to pick the more comfortable phone for, you know, prolonged use, I would pick this one easily. Now, the inner display in terms of size is 8 inches on the Pixel Fold compared to 7.6 on the Z Fold 6. Now, both the inside displays as well as the cover displays, of course, support HDR, so watching movies that support it will look great on either of these two phones, with the brightness on the inside displays being pretty much the same, up to 2600 nits on the Samsung and 2700 on the Pixel. Remember how I said the cover display on the Pixel is not LTPO? Well, it is LTPO on the inner display, so this display does, like the Samsung, go from 1 Hz to 120 Hz. I just really don't know why Google, for the price, didn't include it on the cover display. Makes no sense, especially if you're gonna be using the always-on display like I am. Both phones do have a camera on the inside display, but both of them do it a little bit differently. On the Pixel Fold, it's a punch hole design compared to the under display camera on the Z Fold 6. The Samsung's display might look clean thanks to this design, but the quality is heavily affected, so do keep that in mind. Now, in terms of software, both of these phones are supported for 7 years, which is not only good for those of you that like to keep their phone for that long, but also, you know, if you decide to pick up either of these two phones in 2 years, for example, you'll be happy to know that you still have 5 years of support left. Now, that is pretty darn cool. Now, of course, another thing these phones have in common is AI. Stop me if you've heard this before, but AI is everywhere. I'm pretty sure toasters have AI in some way, shape, or form, right? Love it or hate it, it's here to stay, and not only is it here to stay, but it's only going to improve from here on out. These two phones are just loaded with AI features like Circle to Search, which first made its way to Samsung but is now here on the Pixel phones. Even with the photo editing, there are many AI features. My favorite one on the Pixel is the ability to completely change the way your photo looks like. I mean, you can change the background on your photo just by typing in a prompt of what you want and let AI do the trick, or you can just circle an area and generate whatever you want in that circle. Now, Samsung does have something similar, but it really only works on smaller parts of a photo. You won't be able to change the entire background like you can on Pixel. Instead, you can add some pretty, realistic features to your photo, like maybe a bird sitting on your shoulder or some birds flying around in the sky. The short of it is, if you want a phone that lets you kind of edit your photos a lot more and kind of do basically whatever you want, this one takes the win. But overall, I do think the Pixel just gives you more useful AI features, like features that are kind of really baked into the UI rather than being its own separate thing in its own separate app, if that makes sense. Like, for example, with Google Gemini, the ability to have like a normal ongoing conversation with AI, or things like call notes, and of course the Pixel's famous dictation, which is lightning fast and it is incredibly accurate with grammar. Now, in terms of money for this whole AI thing, Google didn't really put a price tag on it, and I think they're not going to, because it's a Google phone using Google software using Google's own AI. So I think the price to entry for AI on Google's side is just buying a Pixel phone. Now, over on Samsung's side, since they are using Google's servers for AI, or at least a huge chunk of the AI features, it'll be a monthly subscription at the end of 2025. How much it'll cost, we don't know, but it will be paid for. One of the main reasons of picking up a folding phone and having such a large canvas is to do things like multitasking, and here's where Samsung reigns supreme. With the Pixel, you can have 2 apps open side by side, which might be fine for most people, but for you hardcore enthusiasts out there, the Z Fold 6 allows you to add like 6 or more if you want. I don't know why you would want to do that, but you could, so there's that. I love how Samsung is just like, here, just do whatever you want with it, So what about the battery life? Well, the Pixel Fold is heavier than the Galaxy Z Fold 6, and that's because it has a larger battery, 4650 milliamp hours compared to 4400 milliamp hours. But to be honest, they get roughly around the same. Like sometimes I'm ending my days with like, you know, just as an example, like 15 to 20% on the Pixel and like 10% on the Z Fold 6, you know. And but I did notice, keep this in mind, I did notice battery fluctuates quite a bit. Like sometimes, as an example, I'll get 7 hours of screen on time on the Samsung, and then the next day I get like 5 hours of screen on time, and on the Pixel I'll get like 6 hours one day and then like 7 hours the other day. It fluctuates quite a bit, so on average they're basically the same, which is honestly a good thing, because I was really afraid that the non-existent LTPO on the cover display is going to drain the battery, especially if you have the always on display turned on, because it's just constantly refreshing the information 60 times a second for no reason. I was expecting the battery life to be worse, but damn Google, I'm honestly impressed. Unfortunately, none of these two phones have the best camera within their own lineup. So the better camera of the Z Fold 6 is of course the S24 Ultra, and the better camera of the Pixel Fold is the Pixel 9 Pro XL. But what I can say is that you're absolutely going to love these phones whenever it comes to taking photos. However, I will say if you're looking for the more accurate colors, I think the Pixel does a better job. And if you're looking for the, you know, the brighter photo, the Samsung does take that crown. Both phones handle HDR great, with the Pixel maybe edging out the Samsung ever so slightly. You know, this is nitpicking. You can't go wrong with either of these two phones for taking photos. They're so darn good, and they will perfectly capture whatever you're trying to take a photo of. When it comes to video, again, both phones do a fantastic job here, but the Samsung does have more options, such as recording in 8K 30 for more resolution, and the Pixel Fold maxes out at 4K 60. The video boost feature on the Pixel 9 Pro and the Pixel 9 Pro XL does upscale that 4K 60 video to 8K, but that feature is not available on the Pixel Fold, so do keep that in mind. Now I'm going to repeat myself because you guys need to hear this again. If you're worried about photos, if you're worried about videos, you need to stop worrying, because both of these phones are incredible. Honestly, the Z Fold 6 is really hard to beat this year because of just how good of a value it is. It goes up to 1 terabyte of storage. This one goes up to 512 gigabytes of storage. Does it matter to you? Well, only you can answer that. The Pixel 9 Pro Fold is definitely 100% Google's best foldable phone, but I just feel they need a little bit more catching up to do, especially like, I mean, they got the thinness down. Like this thing is really impressive with how thin it is when it's closed, and especially when it's open. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's legitimately ridiculous. So Google has that figured out, but in terms of like this right there, I don't like that. It's not symmetrical. I don't like it. And also, Google kind of needs to work more on their foldable software. Like, for example, Samsung has been doing this for quite a bit, but with the Pixel, anything on here, right, on your homepage, is going to be exactly the same once you open up the phone. That's the exact same layout as it was on the cover display. But with the Samsung, you can have your cover display home screen be completely different than the home screen on the inside display, meaning maybe on the cover display all you want is like maybe your social media and that's it. But on the inside display, maybe you want your Netflix to be there, maybe you want your Amazon to be there, YouTube to be there, maybe some games to be there. You know, you want to open up that big screen and see the apps that are going to be good for that big screen. But when it's closed, maybe you just want your social media apps, right? You have that option to kind of, it's almost like having two phones in one, right? But with the Pixel, you don't have that option, which is kind of strange because, you know, it has an 8-inch display on the inside, which is pretty darn impressive. At the end of the day, it just really comes down to your own personal preference, and no matter which phone you get, you're going to absolutely love them. And again, if you are going to be picking them up, I'll have some links down below that'll help you save some cash, and that's always a good thing. So that's it. Let me know which phone you guys prefer. Let me know why you prefer it. I want to know if like the reasons I'm thinking are similar to the reasons you're thinking, because, well, I don't want to spoil it. But again, let me know down below. Now, if you guys did enjoy today's video, click that like button. It's free for you, but it helps me and the channel out a lot, and I always truly appreciate it. And if you're new here, you want to see some more tech videos, definitely hit that subscribe button. And that's it. This was Mark from Mark's Tech. Adios.